The Extend Omniverse Extension Contest has been extended. How many times can I use that word in one sentence? So you now have until September 9th to submit your submissions, and that comes in really close to GTC, which you guys have better come and see us at the user group, because we've got so much cool stuff that we want to talk to you about at GTC. But Edmar, do we have anything else that we want to go over before we?
I think that's the main thing, right? The
Yeah.
main thing is that GTC is coming up in a few weeks. So go to the GTC page. So easy, nvidia.com/GTC. Register. It's 100% free. It's all virtual. Lots of sessions which are specific on Omniverse. We'll put up a slide a little later so you can see those sessions. But there's something for everybody there. And if you thought that SIGGRAPH had a lot of announcements from us, just hold on, because GTC is going to be a little crazy. So register early so you get all those announcements and updates along the way. And of course, the big thing for today is the contest, and that people have more time. And we have the dream team here, minus maybe Maddie, who's watching in the background. So maybe we'll convince him to jump in a little later. But yeah, we're here to answer all your questions. And because we have Damien here, you could really kind of go deep with your question, and it will be answered. So everybody, thanks for coming on. And we'll also announce this too, that there's a mini extension jam in progress on the Omniverse Discord server. So this also relates to the contest, because it's about making extensions. They did, Jen and Ashley hosted a session earlier on Discord, and then there's another one coming up. At what time does that start?
It's at 2 Pacific time.
2 Pacific. Okay, cool. And if you really want to know anything coming up, just go to the Discord server and go to the events at the upper left, and you'll see them there, and you can click on "I'm interested." So anyone doesn't get their question answered during this live stream, come to the Extension Jam. You have another opportunity, and also you get to hang out with more community members working on Omniverse. So that being said, Paul, Damien, thank you so much for coming on. Jen, Ashley, this should be a fun hour. We want the viewers, Omniverse users, to just start posting questions on either the Twitch chat or YouTube chat. We're going to go through. We're going to stay on top of them, and we'll interrupt these guys at any point for those questions. So, but how would you like to get started, Damien? What do you want to tell people who have this more time?
Yeah. Do you want me to share my screen, Damien? We'll just go through them. Yeah.
Yeah, if there's questions, let's do that. And then, as I say, we have a couple of other feelers that we can do and go over things. So do we have questions? I thought we would start with that, or.
I'm looking right now. We're just getting people jumping in the chat room. So let me see. People are asking for the Discord link. Yep. So there it is. Discord.gg/NVIDIA Omniverse. If you want to go to the mini extension jams or hang out with the community. Let me see.
While we collect those, just few seconds, just to get people sort of started while they're thinking, right? And then and looking around while we collect those. Remember, this is the URL where you get all of these. Not submissions. Submissions are on different things, but all of these one that have been published so far and shared with the group. You go to GitHub, and then you have this topic Omniverse Kit extensions. As we discussed, there's over 50 that have been publicly made available so far. You have the templates, and then you have all of these community members that have started. Tony is great. Well, we could talk a bit about him. He's doing really.
Or my most recent. There's some really fun.
Most recent, so
right now it says best patch, yeah. Recently
updated. Yeah. So a lot of great one, alignment, extension tea time. There's something on this extension Dart. Again, this user has a great video. Again, I think we can do over those. Also, just one thing is you can also see them in the applications. So of course, this is on the web. You can see them and get access to the code. But if you want to see them in the applications, in one of the recently released applications, Create, just got released this week. You can grab the latest Create. And then in the extension tab, you have Community. And then once you enable Community, you see all of these extensions, the one that have been sort of published for being consumed by the applications. And then there you can see their descriptions and the different things they're showing. And of course, you can install them and enable them. So this way you can try them directly into the applications.
A question people ask a lot on this one is, how do I get my thing in here?
Exactly.
And so there's two parts to it. One is that topic. So back on the GitHub page, you have to add the Omniverse kit extension topic. And then that gets it into this list. And then the second thing you need to do is add a release. Right there. Yep. So if you have a release and the topic and it's a valid extension, it's got all the bits and parts it needs to be an extension, it'll show up in that list. Other side.
And this is the standard release process from GitHub. So there's plenty of documentation and video on YouTube on how to do that. It's pretty easy. You go to a few places, you say you want to release, you release a tag, it makes this zip file that represents your repository, and then those are the ones that get traversed and collected. So then they get published into the community extension, and so they can show up there, and then your user can download them, use them, or you can try the one from the other community member.
Pretty frequently. It's not instant, but it's pretty darn frequently. So
Yeah.
every day, something like that, multiple times a day, so we can get up there.
So yeah, just going back to some of these users, right? I want to show some these users, done a very sort of complex work and has a great video of his work using a little bit of everything, which is great. Is the platform enable you to have Python, but ray tracing and robotics, and you have lighting. And so that user, for example, created these great robotic training extensions and simulations. You could see that they've done really great usage of our template for the contest. Those are sort of derived from the template that we share, and they modified them. And so this way you can get your window and your layout started really quickly by leveraging what was provided through the contest template. And end users explain a lot of things on how to get access to them. Really good, when you create extensions, think about the code, right? There is a lot of code and Python files, and you have to think about imagery and your icon, but also think about the quality of the experience of your user. And these users spend a lot of time writing a good README. A description on the image, look at these little GIF that are integrated, screenshot of these applications. Those are really great way to engage with your future user, because they see the effort that you put in documentations. They want to read that, and they definitely feel confident in testing it.
It's a great call, and I've seen a few of the submissions where they're just like the stock README, and that's no good, right? That's just not good at all. Definitely get that README going.
Definitely.
Damien, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Something that we get a lot on Discord is how does someone even get started with creating an extension or getting started in the contest?
Yeah. So that's a great point. So there is a couple of video we posted them when we start launching the contest. So there's plenty of article that we could put on the channel or something like that. There's that video from Create Your Extension in 10 minutes that actually Paul did. I shared it with someone. It's actually 6 minutes, right? So in less than 10 minutes, it's really quick to watch. There is few things. When you learn, you want to install code. So you go to the Omniverse download page, you get the launcher if you haven't, and then you download code. So you have a code installed, and then you can press that green button. That's really your really instant gratification of creating extensions. You create an extension through the templates here, and then you just have few steps. Again, it's detailed on those videos. So and then you get going. You can start experimenting. If you want to advance a little bit more and create, once you've learned a little bit about the basic. The best place to start is through this sample that we've created for the contest. Depending on which of the type of extensions you want to do, here is something to create one of these great manipulator. We've created this repository that has a bunch of example. So you can simply go in GitHub, you clone that repository, and then you start using it inside code to try to modify the one that match your idea. Also, I think one thing that I have seen when I look at some contestant is, we've created multiple of them. So there's another one for window creations. So here a very basic window, and then there's a couple of more advanced example with styling. You absolutely want to think about combining them, right? If you are doing a manipulator, but you also have a window, make sure to check the window extension to look at best practice and include these. And then there's another ones which is on scene creations. Is it construction? Just see. Yeah, I don't have it, but there's a third one on scene creations that enable you to learn about how to create commands, how to create things that modify your 3D world. And then once you build an extension and you start being a little bit more complex than maybe the basic entry point, you start combining these ideas, and then you make sure that you have them on a GitHub repository, and then as mentioned, you add the tag that's required to show in those lists, and then you make a release when you're ready to make it a bit more visible to the world, so your user can then install it.
That's awesome. Can I'm gonna ask you another question just because I've gotten so many just lined up for you. Someone brought up a really good question in our jam earlier this morning. Are they able to make an extension in C++ and just use a little bit of Python to make it work in Omniverse?
So that's a very good question. So they are absolutely supported by the system. Many of our extensions that require high performance or close access to graphics, they are of course written in C++. In the current version of the SDK, we are not exposing that to third party. We have been, of course, listening, and everybody's been asking. So we're prepping for the next big release of Omniverse that will be, following GTC. We are prepping a set of samples and some area where you can create C++ example. So we have the repository. We have, like we did for these extension, examples, a set of things that you will be able to do in C++, and then with that, you'll be able to see how to build them and then integrate them. I will say that there is still one way that you can do it today. If your C++ applications or the things that you want to do in C++, what you can do today already is you create Python binding for your C++. So it does some computing, or you want to do some advanced algorithm that you have in C++. You can compile your library. It's in C++. You create Python binding with your binding of choice. That could be PyBind or Boost or other things. And then you integrate that C++ module inside your extension, and then you can coordinate it with the platform, and then that's supported today. You can definitely do that. So. But we'll have some of these examples when we show. But today you could already do that. We just don't have the example for you to do.
Unrelated.
If you're starting out, I would go for Python. Would be your first choice. If you're debating and you're willing to either do Python, and then if you ever need to, you can go use C++.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to code and create, for example, more than half of the extension in these applications are pure Python, right? So only maybe 30-35% that are the lower level applications, the one that directly interact very low level with the system are in C++. But most of the things that are written in Python, and they leverage the UI system, they leverage USD, they leverage RTX. All of these things, of course, are written in accelerated compute in languages, but you at the level that you can leverage Python as an easy way to write them and iterate quickly, and you can still write very performant extension.
On a related note, we got a question, kind of taking a step back to define what an extension is and what the difference between an extension or an app would be. Do we consider extensions to be apps, for example, is the more pointed question. So how would you define extension in the world of Omniverse?
So if we go back to how we created Omniverse at the beginning, I mean, it's a long journey, but one of the core principles of Omniverse was extreme modularity. Right? The vision from Rev and the one that sort of helped him build the initial platform was, we're going to build a very composable world, fully open, fully accessible by people. That's why we chose Python as one of the primary language, so everybody can learn it quickly and participate. And then the extreme modularity means that everybody is building blocks of the Omniverse, of the metaverse, right? You construct a piece, and then you pass it on into this large body of things, and people assemble them into workflow, into applications, into game, into digital twin, into medical simulations. And so the premise is that you you can't build the web on your own, or you can't build, the internet on your own. What you do is you build something that participates to the overall ecosystem, and you share that with the world, and then everybody is contributing their part. So that's really the model for extensions, right? We have Omniverse Kit is a platform to build extensions. It comes with a lot of extensions at the lower level, really hard, complex ones that are using C++ and accelerated graphics and compute that we build, so you don't have to. So you don't have to worry about that. And then we provide them with the system. Then there is all of these, what we call shared extensions. There is, in Create and Vue and Machinima, hundreds, maybe many hundreds of extensions that are written almost entirely in Python using Kit public API. Those are the same that you can use to build your extensions. There's no preference from the Paint team at NVIDIA compared to your team that could build a similarly advanced tool. You have all of the same informations and APIs. And everybody contribute these extensions into the platform, and then you're able to compose them into your own applications. And furthermore, many of these extensions provide APIs and ways for you to extend them. So then you're like, oh, I'm going to work with the Paint tool, but I'm going to extend it by adding my own script brush, or adding my own workflow, or my own preset. And by doing that, you don't have to write the Paint tool from the scratch, right? And as this Paint tool evolves, you benefit from that, but you're contributing, you're building on top, right? And if all of us are contributing blocks that build on top of each other, we're going to go a lot higher than if everybody else is trying to build his own pile.
There's a great example of that in the community right now. Somebody took Maddie's reticle and they added new views on top of that. So now you can have like a circular finder in the viewport. So yeah, that's a really great example of like building on top of each other. I've also seen a few of that with around alignment tools and scatter brushes. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff there.
No, absolutely. So that's really important, right? That's how you think about extension. It's a piece of functionality. Where we sometimes describe it's an extension. It's a packaged piece of functionality, and then you give it to the world, and then you see what happens. And then the application, they're a combination of packaged functionality into an end user experience, right? I'm creating an application, or the same way when you have a set of Lego blocks, you are creating a house or a bridge or a Star Wars space fighters, right? You assemble it in something that inspire you and tickle your imaginations, and then back you share it with the world. And what's really interesting is those Kit applications, they're really combination of extensions. So they're extensions, and we have some tutorials that we're going to share more, especially over the coming months. But they're also like a Kit file is also like an extension.toml, and then you share those, and so then you're back to the same thing where someone can use your application and extend it and make something a little bit greater, right? And it's great. It's great in that premise.
From a toolmaker point of view, both of those are celebrated pretty heavily inside of Omniverse. So we have an Omniverse Exchange. We have a place where you can go get all the tools you want to use. That includes apps, but it also includes all the extensions. So you can go say like, oh, here's a developer, and here's all about them, what they can get. And in the extension manager that you saw Damien looking at, all the extensions are there. So there's a lot of opportunity for people who are looking to, to get their wares out to the world via extensions. You don't have to like be an app to do that. In fact, I think right now, really, extensions are the premier way to go at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's just the evolution, right? Everybody is like learning, and we can see they're learning fast, and they're starting to make really great extensions. And then soon enough, they'll be like, oh, I've created 4 extensions. I want to combine them into an experience, and now I've got these ideas. I'm going to use RTX and make a model of this and export USDZ files, and and we'll definitely see those internally to NVIDIA. We see tens of applications, right? There is like so many applications that people are building. So that's really great. It's coming fast.
Yeah, on a related note, CL Hammond is asking, what's the recommended way to find extensions? Are there known categories or tags to use? So yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah. So I mean, there's two tiers of extensions, right? There is the one that are inside the product that we send, right? first-party extension. They are built by our teams. And so the best way to find them is the extension manager. Right? You open create or code, right? Really they have a similar set of extension contained into them. And you go in the extension manager, it's very easy to find under window or even code, it's already open there on one of the tabs. And then you search. There is a little drop down that gives you some category, and you can do that. You can also just type and search and figure out what they are. And so that's really a good way. There is about 300 in either code or create that are included inside the package of these applications. And then you have on the web, you have this topic, right? I'm sure there are some that people haven't really done the topic, but generally we're working, tracking the community, and we'll help them consolidate them so they can be discovered by you, and it's great things. We're going to work with that community, and then you can discover them, and you can put yours so they're discovered by others.
And then in exchange, there's also a set of them there, a small set of subset of them there. So the way you think about this is, as a developer, you would publish your stuff to the extension manager through the topic and the release management thing that Damien showed earlier, and they show up in the community tab of the extension manager, and then we'll start working with folks from there to move some of them into exchange.
Do we want to briefly go over the different types or the 3 categories of extensions that we are hoping to collect in this contest? With scene authoring tool, modifier tools, and Omni UI. So what would, if you actually, here's another question related to that. If you were just starting out with coding and fooling around with Python for this contest, which one of these categories would be the best to start with?
It's sort of interesting. I don't know if I would start by thinking that. I would actually think about almost thinking about I'm trying to use Omniverse and I want to make a little macro for myself, right? Make an extension to help you do that, and it'll help you get a thing done. Or, if you have in your industry or your coworkers are trying to use Omniverse, and you can help them build a time-saving, helpful tool. And frankly, most of them have a little bit of all of it. They have a little bit of layout stuff, a little bit of UI stuff. Not all of them have scene manipulators, but there's a little bit of scene manipulator stuff in there. So you don't have to feel boxed in by any of those categories. I would say build some UI, so you have some buttons to click, and then do something in the scene, use some USD and get learning that, and then on those USD objects, put a scene manipulator up, and then make something cool and submit it. You don't have to box yourself into a particular category. The judges will go through and help figure out which is the best fit, best price for those categories. So I've seen a couple people feel a little bit like, oh, I don't know, which category should I go for? And I'm like, that's not the place you should be spinning your brain cells, right? Focus on making something fun and cool.
Yeah. We use this category to be able to provide some kind of focused examples that were showing some piece of functionality that you could use. But really, the winning or the popular extension, they will be useful extensions, right? Good idea that are useful for someone, and it doesn't really matter if they're using one or the other technology. It will really depend on what's the idea, right? So find an idea, do something that you're interested in, and then just pick the right tools for the job.
So speaking of which, if you're watching this and you have you're doing an extension right now for Omniverse, or you submitted already, shoot me a quick DM on Discord, and if you like, you can jump into the stream with us right now. I can give you a secret access, so we can do a show and tell of your extension. That would be awesome. But we've definitely seen a few already that look really interesting. What do you think? We kind of touched on this a second ago, but what do you think the judges are going to be, really looking for? Because we have a bunch of great judges on this contest, on the contest page.
One of them will be around fit and finish, just how does it do what I expect it to do all the way through? And in fact, I've seen a lot of questions around this. Maddie has been dealing with a bunch of them, which are how do I inject my my extension into the Windows menu so that when I close the window, I can go back to the Windows menu and reopen it, right? And toggle it on and off. So Maddie actually answered that question by writing up a little sample for how to do that. So now we have a sample that is how to add whatever extension into a window, and then you can toggle it. It's really great. It's out there on the GitHub.
And again, it's back to use the sample that we have, because of course the window example that we have all add themselves into the window menu and do it the best way. So I think is look at all of them, because you'll learn those different things on doing this. And from a judging perspective, it's the core value of the extension is being useful. Everything's important, when you think at the end of the day, you're going to have loads of cool one and we'll judge it on many different levels, but do something useful, right? Do something fun and interesting that people will enjoy, that's helped them to do something, right? The one that we've seen that we kind of tickle our curiosity, or we said, oh, that's really great to see, or oh yeah, everyone's always asking me for that, these guys have done it, is something useful. And then after the tail is realize it, make it work, and then fit and finish is important, right? Because user wants it to be stable, have the good documentations, be a bit interactive and these type of things. But it starts by some idea.
Damien didn't say complex, right? Complex is fine. It's awesome to have a complex one, but it doesn't have to be complex. Some really, really simple extensions can be really useful and really powerful. And in fact, it allows you to compose them together, as David was saying. So don't be intimidated by, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to make something more complex to make it win. There's a couple of align tools out there that are really straightforward. It's like click, 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 snap, 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 right? Nice. So
yeah. We've even had great ideas for just allowing people to customize their UI. And on the terms of that, a question that we get often is, what's different about the way that Omniverse Kit uses color, in changing UI? Damien, can you talk about that? How to use color when styling in Omni UI?
Yeah, of course. So we, the part of the sample, one of the sample that we said, the one on UI window that you can find, actually has quite a lot of details on styling. I think color is just one part of the look of your things, right? We call it styling, very similar to what's in the web, right? Remember, metaverse is the web of 3D, the 3D web of the future. So styling is important in the same ways. And so in Omni UI, all of the widgets, they represent the geometry and the functionality of the things. What's the size of the button, what's the text in it, what's the size of a rectangle, or its shape. And then the styling is going to define its coloring property, if it has border, no border, that he has rounded corner, and then some of those include the color of the border, the color of the background, the color of the text. And so in our example, we show the styling palette that you can write, right? You just assign to these different objects using exactly a similar pattern as CSS. It's not CSS technically, but it behaves almost identically. You can define color. There is the historical color. Some of the lower level of Omni UI is based on some library called Dear I Am Beauty. It's very popular in the gaming world. It's hardware accelerated. It works on the GPU. That's why we picked it for our backend. And so in that world, the color are defined in integer, but with a big Indian, so they are BGRA in the color space. So people get a bit confused sometimes and stuff like that. So in the later version, since 103, we have a new omni.ui.color type that you can construct very much more people are thinking about color. They think about RGB in the 0 to 255 color, or RGBA, and then also in the web world and print, and they use X, but they use just RGB or RGBA in that directions, X kind of notations, and then we support those as well. But if you look into the Omni UI window example that we share, in the styling, you will see those reflected, and they're clearly documented in the documentation.
It's really straightforward. You just do CL, open bracket, put in your RGB, and then you go.
It's interesting. It also supports all of the CSS color, so you can do CL.red or CL.white, for example, and all of the CSS named color. There's a really long page, but we put them all, and then you can also create your own color, NVIDIA green, or my magic cyan, and then you can assign those constant to your color. and then you can reuse them into your palette. So this way you have, you're using that color, and that's also very similar to what CSS allow you to do.
Absolutely going to make my own color. That is a thing that's going to happen for sure. It'll be in every sample from now on. So that's going to be great. Yeah. I'm really happy that nobody has asked about dancing ants. Remember long ago in the first rounds of the web where the super annoying styling was like to have these little red dotted line that danced around, and nobody's asked for that. So that's great. People are thinking a little more beautifully than we did in the past.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Ashley, did you see some other questions, Ashley? Some good stuff around there?
Oh, for one, I was just gonna comment on in the jam this morning, Jen and I made like some extremely ugly UI, and it definitely reminded me of like early internet stuff. So join our jam later, and we can make some more ugly early internet stuff, and you guys can help us figure that out. But another question I had, someone was trying to work with ngons in Discord earlier in the week, and we found that the way that ngons are translated in Omniverse, there was like a mesh issue. So if someone has a primitive that they're importing and trying to work with in their extension, and it has an ngon, like what's the best way to go about fixing that? Or is there a way that Omniverse can read it?
Yeah, generally, so it's more of a USD things, right? When those are not in the UI, right? They're inside your 3D viewport. When you have many kind of edges, kind of polygons that are not clean quads, or in a Nax shape, they have like convex or different type of structure. They get triangulated by the engine in a relatively naive way, and so you can end up with a shape that's not quite what you'd expect when you look at the outer edge of your polygon. Generally, when you work with those geometry, you have to triangulate them. You just triangulate them at the source, right? You want to work with clean quad or triangle mesh, or maybe just even if you haven't got everything as quad, at least a clean mesh. If you can't get them because they're not like that in your source, you triangulate them before you bring them into Omniverse. So this way you have a predetermined tessellation. Otherwise, yes, you can have some. It's in the Hydra engine. There is a couple of things the team is working on, but generally we expect if you don't get clean geometry in, you get all kind of problems.
I've seen that a few times too, and there's a lot of people who are in the enterprise use cases using 4 or 5 apps in their workflow, and so having good clean geometry at the heart helps through the whole workflow, right? And helps connect all these things together. So yeah, it's good to think about.
Yeah, I think. Oh, so go ahead, Ashley.
Oh, sorry. I'll just keep going with my questions. I've got like a whole booklet where I wrote them all down. I'm here for David.
We always say at the beginning, like 1 hour is long, and then at the end we're like, okay, follow up the jam. Hey, Edmar, you have to book me next week too. I'm coming back. So let's get flowing. I like those questions. I'm sure everybody is learning something, so it's great.
Yeah, so someone was making an extension as well where they were trying to scale their material procedurally, and finding that they were having issues, or I guess they were scaling the object procedurally, and their material was not, they were wondering if their material scaled with the object.
Yeah. So by default, most of our materials they get assigned with UV, right? So if you take an MDL, a normal MDL, a surface, or even the Omniverse surface, the OmniSurface ones, and then you apply a texture. Let's say you've got some grass or something. You apply that. Once you're going to scale your object, the texture is applied in the UV space. So you're going to scale your rectangle, but the UV haven't changed, right? They're still going from 0 to 1 at the edge of your quad, and then your quads become bigger. Well, your texture is spread across that quad. So at those moments, you have to either adjust the UV scaling. So if you scale your object at 200% because you want it to be bigger, then now your grass is too big, you can go in your material and then you can scale your UV by 200%, right? Or you don't scale them by 200%. So you've got some tiling, and so that will be one way where you've got that. You've got to be a bit cautious about some of these seams, and you have to have some tileable material for those. But many of the V material would do that for us. The other option is there is in MDL some 3 planar projections. So once you don't have UV, or once you want to have some material that will be more projected onto the geometry based on word scale, you can use these 3 planar projections, and those ones will be the planar projections workspace. So when you scale your object, the texture itself will not grow; they will just repeat. I think we have some good session video on material and on how to use them. I think if people are just interested with that, they should watch some of the video from Frankie Liu. He does really great video on the material pipeline and the material editor, and so they
One
will
from
learn interesting
SIGGRAPH.
things.
He just did a new version at SIGGRAPH in early August. Frankie Liu, Liu.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's really good.
he's got some really great content there.
I'm coming at you with another one.
I'm ready.
Just gonna play
I'll
them
be
all
back.
out. Someone was trying to access an instance of a prim and found that they were grayed out in the stage. What's the way that they
So
can?
annoying. It's so annoying, USD. But it's so fair. So let's know why. So what an instance is there is a master object, sort of a reference object that is stored in the world, and it will be stored only once in the world, and it will be instanced in many different places. And then the way it works, and at least in the UI, there's a couple of subtleties that you could do, but generally that's the way USD works. Is that instance object is hidden to you. You're not seeing it. Once you get it and you get the reference, that object is stored in some different type of classes, and we don't show it in our user interface, in the sort of the stage window. And then what you're seeing is the instance, and so you're seeing effectively a copy of that object from the original one, and so you're not able to we show them because they're there, and you might want to select them and have a sense of what's underneath and fit them, but you can't change them because there's no unique copy of that object in the multiple instance, only on the reference object. So there's a couple of ways that you can that you can sort of work around that. You technically, when you have an instance, often that's what people will mostly see, they're really instantiating an object from this, right? So they're referencing an object and they're using that reference as an instance, right? That's a good way to have many in the world. You've kind of have to open that reference and then change it there, save your reference, and then reload into your stage, and they will be updated in all of the different places. You can also sort of work around a little bit if you, instead of doing a reference object and then you instance that, you can also do a local instance, right? So you can instance an object in your scene, right? So at that moment, the master, the reference object is not in that hidden place that we store it. It's actually in your scene. And then instead of duplicating an object in the UI, you can instance an object. And at that moment, the instance reference is that other object that you have in your scene. And although you won't be able to change directly any of the instanced children, you can take the parent object, the initial one, and this one you can move around. But generally, if you think about the trade-off is you have copy of the object. They are great. You could do anything you like. You can change any object. You can delete them. They're all individual copy. And so they give you a lot of great flexibility, but you're increasing your memory and then your GPU footprint every time you have more, right? Or you have instance. And at that moment, you have plenty of the same, but they're the same. And some of the modification opportunity are limited.
Awesome. And so I think I got one more for you. Someone was bringing in two different objects that were supposed to, their scale information, their scale metadata was stored in the object file, but when they brought them in, they were different. So for example, like the car was like way smaller than the human that they imported. Is there a way in the metadata of the USD to like go in and change that or access that procedurally?
So there is a couple of cases without really seeing the assets. It's hard to tell exactly what the problem in that particular case. But generally, a couple of things to watch right? And you will see it a good way, or where you would see it is when you use, for example, the asset from the asset stores, right? So we have these great tabs with asset store where you can go in TurboSquid and Sketchfab, and you can download their assets very easily and then bring them into your scene. In Sketchfab, for example, the assets are community driven, right? Everybody in the community build 1 million assets, share them. That's great, right? It's the metaverse for you. It just comes from any random place. You have some amazing one, you have some pretty dodgy one. You figure out, right? But sometimes they are not all built at scale, right? That means that if you take you search for car, you take 10 cars, you download them, they all look great, and you're like, oh, now I'm going to do a little city block. You drop your 10 car, and then you've got this really big car, and you've got this little tiny car. Often they're just not built at scale. Right, so someone decided that he's going to use a 1 Maya unit equal 10 centimeters. Sometimes they don't really, they just build it so it had the right shape. So they're just not built at the right scale. So that happens often. You just have to scale them and figure out what scale you want them to be at. There's another set of problems that arise that we're trying to address. That one we can't, right? It's just built at different scale, The content effectively is wrong, or at least malformed in some way. But there's another things which is actually valid content, right? I build content, and USD has this notion of unit inside the actual layer files. And so I built this content, and I decided that one USD unit was going to be 1 meter. It's a very valid unit. It's set up in the USD file, and then I build my car, and it's 2 units long, and it's 1 unit tall, and the seats are that size. Everything makes sense in my world. But someone decided that 1 unit was going to be 1 centimeter for his motorbike. And so his motorbike is 125 unit long and 50 unit tall. And when you bring them together in the same file as reference, the bike's going to be enormously big compared to the car, right? They both did right? Their content was correct. But when you import these layers with different units, USD doesn't provide an automatic mechanism to compensate or decide what that means, because there's a lot of things in those files that depend on these units. So we're trying to work on solution that when you import layers of different units, we would apply some scaling factor based on what's the unit of your root layers and this type of things. It's not going to be on 104 because there's loads of things with action graphs and proceduralism that needs to be integrated, right? Some people have parameter in their files that they expect to be in the unit of the files, like in rendering, for example, and they're not always well defined. But we're working on a solution. So the short-term gap is when you ingest these assets from different sources, you just apply some modifier on the top root of the object to bring them back into the scale.
It's an opportunity for somebody to build a tool, to build an extension to help with that. Like, for example, draw a line that's exactly 1 meter long, and then on your car or on your whatever, and then it snaps to that new size or whatnot. We also think,
actually, you could because this information is available in the SDF layer for each of those. You could build a unit manager UI, right? That would show all of the different reference objects, which of the units they were coming at, and then for each of them automatically adjust to say scale everybody so it fits in meter. Great extension. I would review it carefully. This one, it would interest me.
Yeah, very interesting one. Wink, wink.
Someone asked a good question on the Steam chat or a Twitch chat, sorry. And they said, can you build simple games on Omniverse? Now, I saw someone a few weeks ago post in the Discord that they built a Tetris mini game while they were waiting for something to render.
You can absolutely build mini games and these type of things. Actually, one that we built a marble demo. Right? That was a big game, right? It's not a mini, but it was just showing the idea that you can use physics and controllers and RTX and you can build quite advanced workflow. But even at the lower level, someone, Peter Shipkoff, he leads our sort of Terraform and procedural division here. He when he started, he'd built this. It's like these asteroid games. You know, when you were playing Vertex, like this kind of 2D, like an Electron kind of thing, game player. You had this game where you would like do this like little jets fighter, and he would pull that asteroid, and they would break, and then you would pull the small one until you break everything. And he built one like that completely in Python using Kit when he started, and it was really fun. And he had even used OmniObject to do multiplayer collaboration, so you could connect two players at the same time, and then you could be like a multiplayer asteroid. It's really great. And he had written that entirely in Python, and so that was really great. So yeah, minigame would be fun.
What I do about that though is that let's say you're a AAA studio talking to us about building games, right? We have the Unreal connector, and so what you do is you work out your pipeline for your game building. Like you're probably using Maya, Adobe Substance, Omniverse together plus Unreal. Now that gets you the big pieces, but then there's a bunch of little pieces in between. There's a bunch of the little things you'll need to do throughout that workflow, and that's where the tools come in. That's where extensions come in. So you can start to think about in those game building pipelines, what are the extensions you need? So if you are really keen on helping the creators in the game industry, that's a really good way to think of it. Is like, imagine they're going to publish it with Unreal Engine, and they're going to use the connector to get to Unreal Engine. What are they doing in Omniverse and these other apps, and what might they need help with? For example, they might need help with lighting, right? They might want to have like a really cool lighting array that's really easy to set up and run inside of Omniverse as they're bringing all their assets together before they go off to publish them through Unreal Engine. Finding those little workflow pieces is
Custom
right.
3D workflow operation, right? It's one of the big area where we see a lot of demand from our partner and enterprise customer. Is they want a tool, a platform of tool that enable them to build these long pipeline, or this complex pipeline, but they want to make it easy for them. And they use Omniverse to have the connector, they have nucleus storage, they have Kit and Python, they have the community of things people that are start building, they have RTX when they need to do some pre-visualizations, they have Kit microservices, they have Farm, and all of these things kind of play together. So I think that's one of the things when a mini game has the engine there, it's kind of more like fun, and you could definitely do that. I think that's fun. But in the game pipeline, you can think of many type of tools and workflows where Omniverse can be an accelerator to the workflows.
Speaking of which, we just announced at SIGGRAPH that Unity connectors in the works, which is pretty exciting.
That's really great.
Yeah, and you can make your own connectors too. So anybody who wants to make a connector, if you have your own game engine, we have a connector example. You can make one for that too. It's really big.
We have seen a lot of game studio doing that, and they're not always public and official, and can't say who they are, but definitely for great usage, right? They use that as a platform from going from Maya to Houdini to their game engine back and forth, and doing some really interesting work. And so that's definitely a process that you can look into.
Yeah, when you're thinking about this from a let's say you're thinking about making a startup in the tool making business. One of the things you're thinking about is your customers, right? And so one customer is all the people like us. We're here hanging out in the community, making stuff, and there's a bunch of people in the community that are working at big companies that they're sort of evaluating what does metaverse mean to me, or what does digital twin mean to me, or whatever. And so there's folks here in the community that are just trying to really understand how this all works by getting their hands dirty and using it. So the tool building, one tool building business model is to help those folks, help them get up to speed quickly and find the use cases for them. Because as they start to pull Omniverse and stuff into their workflows, they will go like, these tools are awesome. Likewise, there's a bunch of big enterprise companies using Omniverse. We can talk about some of them, like BMW and DNEG and that crew, but there's a bunch we can't talk about because they're doing big secret projects, right? And they're building out huge deployments. But those people are watching the community. They're watching the extensions that get put in the extension manager and into Exchange, and they're the kind who, even if they see something that's simplistic and kind of close to what they want, but not exactly what they want, their next thing might be to call and say like, hey, are you up for a gig to help with this project we're trying to do? Because they outsource a lot of their work to a lot of teams and small companies. So this is why I keep focusing on start with just build something that's awesome for you. Then start thinking about these workflows that you and your peers and your compatriots are working through, and then start thinking about the industries that you're expert in, niche things. Like if you're really into construction, or you're really into engineering, or you're really into healthcare, or whatever, nail those niches and you know the workflows better than anybody. Build out some tools that help exercise that, and then people will start seeing, people will start watching. This is a really interesting time right now, because out in the world, there's a lot of confusion about what is my digital twin strategy? What am I going to do? How hard am I going to lean into this? What tools should I use? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And one of the best ways to answer questions in my mind is show them the code, like proof of concepts, right? Show them the products, show them the features, show them the usability, right? Really useful things get adopted. Beyond.
So we got a question regarding an extension. I have an idea for an extension that turns descriptive text into 3D models. Is there a way to generate 3D models within Omniverse without a reference model in Maya?
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's an interesting extension. I want to see it. Please start working on it immediately. The next thing is absolutely once you in Omniverse Kit, you have access to the entire USD pipeline, right? And then USD enable you to describe meshes and light and prim. The same way you can create them from the UI, you can create them from code. Actually, there is if you look into the code, there is one that will be called omni.kit.primitive.meshes or something like that. We'll post it in the chat. And it's the one that when you go to create meshes, and then you create a sphere or a torus or a cube, that generate those, right? Those are not primitives inside USD. They are generated by Python scripts that create that topology and the connectivity of these meshes based on some procedural parameter, right? A cone and a circle and spheres, torus is defined by some procedural math functions. But if you define them through some AI, and then you have a volumetric type of rendering and you do ray marching, you could absolutely do that. And then you can generate the USD mesh from that, and then push it into USD, and then Hydra will translate it to RTX, and then you'll see it in full fidelity rendering. I think if you're doing this type of work as a developer, you also want to look for warp. Warp is going to enable you to do a lot of very advanced computation on the GPU, but leveraging Python as a language to write it. And in the warp example, there is a set of warp objects for SDF. Because if you go from natural text to geometry, you're probably going to have to do natural text to some volumetric representation like NERF or something like that. And then from there, you're going to mesh them into something. So you can look at warp. You definitely be benefiting from that, and it's a really great extension for accelerating that work and leveraging the GPU. But you could also just be, more, having a new idea of an algorithm where you would either combine regular primitives, right? You could just use a bunch of regular primitive and combine them together like a Minecraft style, or you can just mesh them yourself, which is, again, it's pretty easy. Again, I think we're always running out of time. It feels like every time I come, it's like it's too short. Maybe we should start making them 2 hours. But before we close, just back to part of the premise that we wanted to do that is just talk to us, right? We're here to help you. We try to create the condition by which you would create something awesome, but we don't want to leave you there alone, right? Just contact us, tell us, oh, I'm working on this, right? And I'm trying to do that. What are the best way? Matty, Ashley, Jen, they're all really active on the community here, and they're answering all kind of questions. Just use you can use the internet, you can use your peer, you can use us to get answers to your questions and get unblocked, so you can get to the next level of what you're trying to create. Remember, the contest is like an opportunistic moment to boost yourself, try to work late at night on the weekend to create something unique, and maybe win a GPU. But we're all in there just for the glory, right? GPU is just the cherry on the cake. But this is just the beginning, right? You're just and you're just starting that journey, you're learning something new, maybe you're just transitioning from whatever you were doing before because you want to be first in the metaverse. Just work with us, right? We relentlessly every day, morning to night, work to try to create the condition by which you can be creating these things. And of course we want to help you. So reach out to us in the forums, in Discord, on anywhere, on LinkedIn. Loads of people ping me on LinkedIn. It's like, yeah, of course I can help you, but maybe take that to the forum and come with us there. But just reach out, right? Don't stay on your own just trying to solve your problems.
Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, there are a lot of folks who are working on extensions that are not in the Discord right now. So you should go get in the Discord. It's just a really great place it's the fastest way to get help from anybody on the team or anybody just in the community.
And by the way, before we say goodbye for now, but not for long, we're actually going to head in Discord in a couple hours for the mini extension jam with Jen and Ashley. So discord.gg/NVIDIA Omniverse, and you can go to the events on the left side to look at more details. But I'm sharing my screen now with what is happening at GTC regarding some of the most recommended sessions relating to Omniverse. So here you go, just a few weeks away, free registration. Link is at the bottom. But I think there's something for everybody, including an awesome discussion based on kind of our talk we had last week with Rev on the live stream about the metaverse. We talked about USD and MDL, but really fascinating chat with Rev on his feelings on the metaverse and what it really is and what it really means to everybody and how you could prepare for it. So definitely try to attend that session. And to continue on what we're talking about today, how to build extensions and apps for virtual worlds. And then, of course, as Wendy mentioned earlier, our Omniverse user group, which is we're planning for it every day, gathering the right people, the right content, so everybody's going to be able to get a lot of information out of that. And it's always a lot of fun.
It's my favorite session.
You will be there, right, Damien? You're in our user group, right?
I couldn't miss it for the world. Yeah, awesome. It feels like when it's finished, I'm just waiting for the next one already.
And I think Frank's going to be joining us too, and he's going to shed some more light on the roadmap of Omniverse and what we're working on next. So that'll be really exciting. So go ahead and register for GTC, and most definitely work on your extension for the contest. Leverage, like Damien just mentioned, leverage the resources you have on the team to help you. If you're having a problem, you're not getting an answer, feel free to shoot me a direct message, and I'll see if I could help get the right person to help. And then next week, we have a great live stream with the Audio to Face team. We're going to be talking about Audio to Emotion, which was just released at SIGGRAPH. And we have a very special guest, Jay Salina, otherwise known as JS Films. He has not fooled around with this stuff yet, the stuff we just released. So we thought it would be great to bring him on and let him ask all the questions to help everyone else who's just learning. So he's going to put the devs of the team to the test and see if they can answer everything to help get them started using Audio to Face and Audio to Motion. So until then, thank you very much, everybody. This has been a great stream. Thank you, Ashley, for having all those questions. You have answered a lot of questions that people had by bringing them up, Ashley. One of the viewers you talked to earlier, I think, was watching the stream. So great you brought those up. So thank you, Damien. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Ashley. And most of all, thank you, Wendy, for.
Thank you.
Thank you all. As awesome as always.
Yep. Well, we'll see you guys. Yeah. We'll see you at the on Discord at the Dev Jam. So if you have questions, go there. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.